Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Fiction Network. Rebirth and failure to become an art student. Building the German Empire. Hitler was reborn in 1919, but unexpectedly found himself in the parallel world of the German Empire. In this turbulent era, the art academy he worked hard to apply for surprisingly failed twice. At the same time, his superiors even sent him to work as an undercover agent in the Workers' Party. As a master of success in his past life, he had no choice but to pursue his old profession. In order to successfully complete the task, Hitler began his success speech. "Those who betray me will be given 1 million, and in the future." Understand the applause. Originally, Hitler only wanted to complete the task as soon as possible and continue to apply for the Academy of Fine Arts. But what he didn't expect was that after a speech, the domestic people actually let him become the leader. When art students failed to make it, when World War II began. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Art student failed the exam and asked me to become an undercover agent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Art student failed the exam and asked me to become an undercover agent. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward at the beginning of the 19th century. Hans Cat Country. Outside the Music City Art College. P.S. For the convenience of the plot, the Music City has been adjusted to Hans Cat Country Muhay Market. 5 years. 5 years. Do you know how I spent these 5 years? Do you know? Hitler was furious and constantly roared towards the academy, like a madman, disregarding the feelings of those around him. As a traveler, his ideal is simple. Having money to spend now, becoming famous in the future, and even hanging on the wall after death. In his past life, he was a student at a certain young Academy of Fine Arts, and his paintings were highly praised by professors and masters. He thought that with his own skills, he could still gain a certain position in the art academy. If not, he could always become a student. Whoever thought? Whoever thought for a full 5 years, he failed 5 times in a row. And he went from creating himself to imitating famous artists. For the last time, he received an answer that exploded his mindset. The teacher in charge of reviewing said that his paintings lack uniqueness. Shit. Lousy copied Master Picasso by, which was a globally renowned existence in his past life. Do you tell Lousy that it lacks uniqueness? Hitler stood outside the art academy for a whole day, even the sunset on the horizon was dyed red. All right, young man, it's almost enough. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind, and upon hearing this, Hitler instantly became angry. Have you never heard the saying, do not advise others to be kind without their suffering? You are not afraid of being struck by lightning on rainy days. The more you think, the more angry you become. Hitler finally couldn't help but turn his head and curse at the person who came. Shit, get out of here for me. Hello, sir. The next second, after Hitler saw the incoming person clearly, he was instantly dumbfounded. Standing behind him was a middle-aged man dressed in a straight dark green military uniform, wearing a military cap and slightly wrinkled corners of his eyes. It was the former commander. Franz. Franz. He was once the commander of Hitler during World War I and is currently the Minister of Intelligence in Muhay City. The reason why Hitler was able to survive starvation for 5 years was entirely due to his part-time job in the military. At the same time, he was also very grateful to this officer for supporting his creation for 5 consecutive years and did not expel him from the military. Hitler, looking at what you looked like just now, if I'm not mistaken, you failed again. Franz raised his eyebrows and said playfully. To be honest, he had never seen a soldier under his command who, like the one in front of him, wanted to become a painter but ultimately failed to do so for 5 consecutive years. If it weren't for maintaining the authority of the chief, he really wanted to ask, what has supported you to persist until now? Hitler's expression was somewhat awkward. But he quickly adjusted and looked up, saying seriously, "Sir, this is definitely not my problem." Franz suddenly smiled and said, "It's not your problem. Are you trying to say, this is the problem of the professors at the art school?" Hitler. It's not a problem with those blind guys who don't even pay attention to Master Bai's words. Can't that explain the problem? The above words are just words from Hitler's heart and cannot be said to Franz. All right, Hitler. I don't want to hear you gossip about these useless things. Now I announce that your vacation has ended. It has been a year since the last Republican uprising, but as the Secretary of Intelligence, I need to prevent this phenomenon from happening again. There are currently more than 50 political parties of various types in this city, and I need a secret report to identify the radical factions among them. Now, there is a newly established party called the Hans Cat Workers' Party, with a leader named Anton Zuasil. I need you to figure out what they want to do. Do you understand, my artist warrior? Understood, Officer Franz. Hitler exclaimed loudly. Very good, Hitler, I'm very optimistic about you, come on. Franz finished speaking and left satisfied. On the scene, only Hitler remained, standing in place with a bitter expression on his face. Break into the enemy's interior and find the radical party. Mad, it's another big job. Compared to that, it's more comfortable to draw, but those Dog Day people don't want it yet. As in previous life history, whenever the world falls into chaos and countries become unstable, countless new parties emerge. These political parties have different ideas, some want to establish dictatorship, while others want to take advantage of the opportunity to make national wealth. Seize the opportunity to steal political power, provoke troublemakers, and even foreign spies. People are mixed, fish and eyes are mixed. At present, the Hans Cat Kingdom is just in line with the national conditions. The Treaty of the Defeats was only signed a short time ago, and almost 50 political parties have emerged in the city where Hitler lived. Finding radical parties from over 50 political parties is a daunting task. To ensure that Hitler's identity is not exposed, it is necessary to have sufficient reputation within one party or even the entire city. It can be anticipated that this may be a very long and difficult undercover mission. Hitler sighed and turned to look at the Music City Art Academy behind him, then turned around and lifted his foot to leave. If I remember correctly. Just now his superior Franz told him that the address of the Hans Cat Workers' Party is in a brewery called Thorn Rose. It's still early at this moment, and if he rushes over, the brewery will be bustling. Hitler left without looking back. When he was about to leave, he casually threw all his drawing tools, such as his drawing board and brushes, into the nearby trash can, like throwing garbage. I'm going to Nima. Chapter 2. Beer House Opening Speech. Kneeling to beg for flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Beer House Opening Speech. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward. The time has arrived at 8 p.m. At this moment, it happens to be the time for the workers to come out and chat after work. According to the intelligence provided by Franz, these Hans Cat workers like to gather in the back room of the tavern on weekdays. And if Hitler wanted to get in, it was very simple, just order a glass of beer to add it. It sounds like this task is not too difficult, and it can even be said to be a waste of effort. However, in reality, often with this seemingly low threshold for joining, the invisible threshold is infinitely high. Joining is possible, but if you want to understand the core, it will be extremely difficult. May I ask, is it really such a loose organization with such a low threshold that you can really hear what Franz wants? Hitler had great doubts about this. Entering the tavern, Hitler casually ordered a glass of oatmeal beer, and then carried it to a door in the corner of the tavern. Pushing it open, it was the gathering place of the Hans Cat Workers' Party, as Franz had described it. Roughly speaking, this is no different from the tavern outside, the only difference may be that everyone is more restrained and the atmosphere appears somewhat quiet. Noticing a newcomer entering, everyone looked up at Hitler and quickly glanced to the side. They sat together in groups of 3 or 2, chatting with each other. Hitler was also enjoying his leisure, hoping that everyone would ignore him, so maybe he could discover something more. He came to a wooden table in the corner with a beer and sat down, then waited quietly, like an ordinary person who came out to sit and was bored. And people like this are not uncommon in taverns, and everyone has already become accustomed to them. This sitting lasted for half an hour. For a full half hour, Hitler could be said to have achieved nothing. Apart from learning that a certain family's pigsty was screaming incessantly in the middle of the night, and a widow selling bread in the east of the city was knocked on, there was no valuable news. It seems like there was nothing today. Hitler looked at the empty beer glass in front of him, feeling somewhat helpless. Although I was prepared to return in vain before coming, I still feel a bit unhappy after understanding. Get up, lift your feet, and prepare to leave. But at this moment, Hitler suddenly stopped moving and took his steps back. This guy, it's a bit interesting. He squinted his eyes slightly and suddenly noticed a very inconspicuous guy sitting alone in front of one of the tables. The other person was wearing a pair of golden glasses, with a tense expression and a hint of hesitation. They were holding a piece of paper in their hand, and their eyes frequently switched back and forth between the paper and the world. Suddenly, Hitler's curiosity was aroused in his heart. He came to show interest on the spot and decided to sit down and take a good look at what this guy wanted to do. Perhaps tonight's unexpected gains will come from this person. As expected. 5 more minutes have passed. The bloated man, wearing golden glasses and a tailcoat, finally couldn't help but stand up. Everyone, please wait a moment. I have something to say. Lucas spoke up. His voice echoed in the back room and immediately caught the attention of the entire tavern. For a moment, everyone looked up, somewhat surprised. According to their understanding, there should be no speeches within the party today. Faced with everyone's gaze, Lucas nervously picked up the manuscript in front of him and began reading with a trembling voice. I think we should no longer continue to bear the responsibility of the defeated. The Treaty of the Defeated was signed by those scumbags who had already defected. When our soldiers of the Hans Cat were still fighting hard on the front line to bring glory to our country, we signed it ourselves. This has nothing to do with us. So, I think it's time for Bavaria to become independent. Ladies and gentlemen, let's fight for our bread and milk. At the end, Lucas vigorously waved his arm, his face flushed, and he roared loudly. His words instantly silenced the scene. Everyone present first looked at each other, then followed closely by Lucas on stage, finally receiving some kind of encouragement. Make room for it. The remaining members of the tavern stood up one by one, holding up their right hands and shouting along. Battle! 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 The entire scene became extremely restless, like boiling water, and the atmosphere was simply explosive. On stage, Lucas looked at the restless crowd below, his eyes shining with excitement. He knew it, his idea is right. Why should they bear the mistakes of others? They should be independent. Whoever signs the treaty should be asked to compensate, and they must not touch the milk and bread on their dining table. Why are those cowardly deserters able to hide in the rear and enjoy a better life unscathed, while these lower-class people should be oppressed? At this moment, Lucas felt as if he had become the true owner of this country. He clenched his fist in his right hand, vigorously waving it again and again, his face turning red, and the veins on his forehead constantly wriggling. His gaze swept across the entire room. However, the next moment, he suddenly noticed an anomaly in the crowd. The other party not only did not stand up and cooperate with him to resist, but also made a declaration of independence. However, they sat calmly in place, drinking oatmeal beer. Most importantly, from the other person's eyes, he saw a strong sense of disdain. If he remembers correctly, the other person was a stranger he had never seen before, appearing today. Bomb! A raging anger immediately burned from his heart, charging straight towards the heavenly spirit cap. He pointed at Hitler from afar and took the initiative to provoke him loudly. "Sir, why don't you stand up? Do you think the actions of those cowardly deserters are very correct? Or is it that you are willing to become a member of the oppressed lower class and unwilling to resist?" Schwa 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 as soon as this sentence is spoken. At that moment, everyone in the back room of the tavern turned their gaze to Hitler, who was hiding in the corner drinking. These people have different expressions, including questioning, confusion, vigilance, and threats. Feeling the danger released in the eyes of these people, Hitler couldn't help but laugh in his heart. I was worried about not having many opportunities to truly touch the core layer of the Hans cat, and the opportunity came at my door. He leisurely took a sip of the beer in front of him, then shook his head with a smile and pointed to the audience on stage, saying, "Because, you guys are so foolish." With a loud bang. As the words fell, a huge uproar erupted in the crowd. The anger in everyone's hearts surged and was instantly ignited. They glared at Hitler with fiery eyes, gritting their teeth as they watched as they were about to take action in the next second. Chapter 3. Master of Success Studies. Social Bandit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Master of Success Studies. Social Bandit. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward. It has to be said that in terms of offending people, Hitler has always been exceptionally talented. In one sentence, the whole room couldn't help but want to beat him up. If it weren't for the rationality of these people, it would probably have been a problem for Hitler to go out sideways today, and he would have to be carried out. "Sir, do you know what you were just saying?" Lucas squeezed in front of the person and threatened in his tone. He asked himself if there was anything wrong with what he had just said. That bunch of bastards left a mess for them to run away, cutting land and paying compensation. Even the number of weapons equipped in their country's military is strictly regulated and restricted. How can they replace those shitty things and bear the consequences? Why? For a moment, Lucas looked at the person across from him who said they were fools and became even more angry, with a murderous look in his eyes. Opposite. Feeling the murderous gaze from Lucas and everyone else, Hitler was not frightened. He smiled and shook his head. "Of course I know what I said, and of course, I haven't completely denied some of your words, Mr. Lucas. The fact is indeed so. It is an undeniable fact that the government's gang of bastards, disregarding the safety of the frontline soldiers, signed the Pact of Defeats without authorization. Compensation is a fact, land cutting is also a fact, and it is even more true that the milk and bread on our table were stolen. But are these things related to us for half a penny? Mr. Lucas just said, we should be independent. Is this the level we can reach?" At first, as everyone listened to Hitler's speech, the hostility in their eyes gradually decreased, replaced by disdain. In their eyes, Hitler was just scared by them and began to soften. Lucas also showed the same expression. Listening to the former's soft words, he felt infinite pride in his heart. At this moment, he seems to have seen leading the party towards independence, towards freedom and a brilliant future. Unfortunately, this state has not been maintained for long. Immediately after, everyone was awakened by Hitler's divine turn. Especially when they heard Hitler's questioning of the soul. Do you have enough levels to pursue independence? Is the compensation for ceding land related to them? Think carefully. The hierarchy is not sufficient. If we were to pay compensation for ceding land, there might be a connection, but it doesn't seem to be too big either. Of course, it's not that they don't care, but it's indeed what Hitler said, and it seems that it's not their turn to worry about this matter. Thinking of this, everyone present began to waver in their hearts. But ultimately, it's our lower class people who suffer. Shouldn't we resist? Lucas became anxious. Feeling a change in everyone's attitude, he quickly explained loudly. His words also aroused everyone's thinking. Indeed. It's normal for them to finally suffer, and it's normal for them to resist at the right time. Noticing that these people were no longer influenced by Hitler, Lucas finally relaxed his tense heart. Then, he looked at Hitler provocatively, as if demonstrating to Hitler. His performance was fully recognized by Hitler. Seeing this, Hitler couldn't help but shake his head. It was forcing himself to use real kung fu. Anyway. Since you want to play, I'll play with you. That's right. What you said is right, and what you think is also right. But let me ask you a question first, can you guarantee 3 meals a day now? Can you ensure that you can eat full even after a sudden stomach attack? Can you guarantee that your child can afford to go to school, wear nice clothes, and not be bullied? At the scene, Hitler's sudden sound sounded like thunder, causing a buzzing sound in everyone's ears. Everyone's brain suddenly froze. They vaguely understood what Hitler was trying to say. As the other party said, they cannot guarantee that their stomachs will not be hungry, their children will not be cold, and they will not be bullied at school. They are currently the lowest level who cannot even meet the basic guarantee of life, so where is there any leisure to worry about other things? Even if they do, how insignificant a contribution can they make to this country? In the room, the atmosphere suddenly fell to freezing point. The air seemed dead and didn't make any sound. Everyone's eyes gradually became empty, and their expressions became numb to the extreme. Seeing this, Lucas panicked. His voice echoed throughout the room. Everyone, don't listen to this guy's nonsense. Although our strength is small, we have many people. Even if we are at the bottom, we should still shine and heat up. Only in this way can we regain the most beautiful life we once had, the stolen milk and bread. Lucas tore his heart and lungs, constantly pulling on the people around him, trying to awaken them. However, these people seemed to have been hit too hard and didn't want to talk to him at all. Looking at Lucas, who was still struggling weakly, Hitler had a feeling of being cold and aloof in his heart. There's no way. After all, in terms of language art, he is a disciple of the 4 great learning heavenly kings in the Doin world, plus the influence of Black Earth culture. People give nicknames. Social bandit. Nickname. Social terrorist. Abbreviation. Social anxiety. Seeing that the atmosphere at the scene was almost over, Hitler sorted out his thoughts and spoke again. He is worried that continuing like this may cause depression for these guys. When Chief Franz asked him to report the latest situation, what would he say? It's hard to say that he made these guys a bit depressed and all of them quit the Workers' Party. They should go home and farm, and work hard. Cough. He cleared his throat slightly. Upon hearing the words, everyone instinctively looked up, and their empty eyes only then showed a hint of vitality. Facing the stiff expressions of the crowd, Hitler's expression was slightly unnatural. He smiled awkwardly and then said with a normal expression, "Don't be so pessimistic. What I just said was just to make everyone aware of reality, isn't it? Now, I believe everyone has recognized reality clearly. Then I have to ask a question. Why do we have to be pessimistic? Why can't we just be at the bottom? Ultimately, one word, money. I want to ask everyone a question, do you want to make money? Does anyone like money?" Perhaps stimulated by the word money, everyone became a bit angry, but even so, they still had no desire to confide. Hitler doesn't mind either. He said to the crowd, "If I could bring you a lot of money, do you like it? I may not be able to make a few $100 billion with you, because people who make so much money will not follow me. But I can take you to earn tens or even billions, and this timeline needs to be extended to a year, billions of marks a year. Do you like it? Do you want it?" Chapter 4. Understanding. Applause. Kneeling and begging for flowers to beat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Understanding. Applause. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward billions. And it only takes 1 year. After hearing this number and this cycle, everyone's heart couldn't help but beat violently, and their empty eyes instantly added a touch of vitality. Is it really fake? Their first reaction as they looked at the young man in front of them was disbelief. How could someone possibly make so much money? Is it possible that the other party is deceiving them? Lucas stood on the side, looking even more sarcastically at Hitler, wanting to see how the man's next scene would proceed. He was very skeptical that the purpose of Hitler's trip was to come here to cheat money. He believed that as long as someone took the bait, Hitler would definitely find ways to get people here to pay him. Do you believe me? Do you believe that I can lead you to earn over 10 billion? At this moment, Hitler was heard to ask them again. As soon as this sentence is spoken, everyone hesitated. They are not fools, how could they have been fooled by Hitler and believed in just a few simple words? However, there are always people who hold the mentality of giving it a try and not asking for money, and shout out fearlessly, believe it. Wrong. Big mistake. I don't think you can make money in your lifetime. However, what everyone did not expect was that Hitler did not follow the plan they had in mind. Instead, he questioned and denied them. He believed that he could never become a human being in this lifetime and could never make money. Now, everyone is dissatisfied. Why can't they do it? Why can't they make money? The road of life is long, without reason, others can do it, they cannot. Why do you say that? You're not a wizard, can you predict the future? Someone said defiantly. This person is with Lucas, and with the advice of his friend, he deliberately said such things to make things difficult for Hitler. However, Hitler showed a fearless attitude towards this. He even looked up arrogantly, spread out his hands, and proudly said, "No, no, no, I'm not a wizard, and even I never like money. I never touch money. Even the most enjoyable thing for me is the life with only enough money for today's lunch in my pocket. But I have helped countless people earn money before. 3 of them have even reached the point of manipulating the country's economy. And they also have a nickname, people call them bankers or oligarchs. Now, can you understand the gap between us?" Under the stage, everyone was in a daze. Even Lucas, who was preparing to watch the excitement in the crowd, was dumbfounded. At this moment, his heart began to waver, suspecting that what the other person was saying might be true. There's no way, it's just that Hitler's appearance is too confident to suspect that what he said is false. Returning to the previous topic. Seeing everyone's expressions moved, Hitler took advantage of the heat and decided to pursue the victory. He said, "As I just said, all you need now is money. The only difference between you and the master is money. By the way, if you have money, wouldn't you be able to spend it? Can't you cultivate yourself, cultivate your character, and enrich your life?" One sentence instantly ignited the whole audience. Hitler's questioning, one after another, erupted like shouts, unleashing the still hidden resentment, grievances, unwillingness, and even anger in everyone's hearts. Yes. 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 The 3 sounds of meeting rushed straight to the roof, penetrating the house and resounding throughout the entire neighborhood, with deafening sounds. Okay. Very good. That is to say, what is the only difference between us and the human being? The last step. That's money. But I'm sorry, for me, asking me to call you other people may be almost impossible, but as far as making money is concerned, it's easy. I once said this sentence. What it is. How much money you have spent is what determines your magnanimity. I've spent billions of dollars on unjustly accused money. When doing practical things, isn't it just a matter of chatting and laughing? When you have money, you need to spend money, but when you don't have money, you even need to spend money. Do you understand? Understand the applause. Once this statement is made. Wow! In an instant, thunderous applause erupted from the scene. Countless people were extremely excited, blushing and applauding desperately. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. It can be called a golden and jade advice. Looking back on the past, when they spent money, they always wished they could split it in half. Looking at those wealthy people again, when will they hesitate because of this small amount of money? Even if you need to hesitate about what you like, how can you be generous when you truly make money in the future? Lucas huddled in the corner, watching the impassioned Hitler, his expression unconsciously adding a touch of fanaticism. That's right. In just a few seconds, he was successfully infected by Hitler's remarks. But reason told him that what the other person said may not be entirely right, and some could even be called unreasonable. However, involuntarily, he still leaned more towards Hitler in his heart. "Sir, could you please tell us your name?" At this moment, a slightly overweight man spoke with a trembling voice, his words filled with absolute respect. "Hitler. Mr. Hitler, we would like to invite you to join our Workers' Party and become the 97th party member here." "I wonder if you would like to join us," the chubby man said trembling. "Of course, I believe that with your talent, sir, you should not just be an ordinary party member in our party. You should have a more heavyweight position in order to fully utilize your talents. I hope you can give me some time. We would like to apply for the position of the 7th member of our party's presidium for you. I just hope you can spare a little time to lead us all and our party towards glory." Before Hitler could speak, the obese man quickly added a sentence. His eyes were fanatical, and his words carried a hint of caution, afraid of offending the man in front of him. And as he finished speaking, it immediately attracted a warm welcome from everyone inside the room. "Welcome Mr. Hitler to join. I earnestly request Mr. Hitler to lead the Workers' Party towards glory." The words fell. Everyone bowed together. The atmosphere on site was very grand. After bowing, everyone's expressions were tense, their eyes filled with hope, as if waiting for Hitler's answer. Compared to the performance of these people, Hitler now had a bewildered expression on his face. Is this a compromise? He really wants to say that he hasn't put in any effort yet, why did he compromise? "Okay, I accept it," Hitler said in the room, smacking his lips and still feeling unsatisfied. New book set sale, little brother kneels down to seek any data support. As long as there is a flower, a reward, and a monthly pass, I will be even more explosive at 20. Kneeling down for all the data. Chapter 5. Sir, I have infiltrated the enemy's interior. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Sir, I have infiltrated the enemy's interior. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward in the blink of an eye. Time arrived the next morning. Hans Katmuhe military camp. In a huge office, countless officers walked back and forth, chatting and handling affairs, making the air on site incredibly noisy. As the Minister of Army Intelligence, Franz sat in his seat, flipping through today's documents, a process that took a whopping 5 minutes. "Sergeant Hitler, can you tell me what problem you've encountered? But no matter what problems you encounter, I hope you remember to stay calm, don't worry, you know, it's only been one night now. And the deadline I gave you is a full month." After comforting his subordinates with some tips on how to handle undercover work, Franz calmly picked up the cup next to him, which was filled with black liquid, and leaned towards his mouth. In his opinion, his subordinate may have been too eager to come and see him on the second day of the task, which is easily exposed. The normal situation is to only find ways to pass on important information to oneself after understanding it. "Report to Officer Franz that I have successfully joined the Hans Cat Workers' Party and they have elected me as the 7th member of the Workers' Party." Hitler stood straight with a loud voice, and at that moment, Frank's lips had just touched the rim of his cup and he took a sip of coffee from it. Next second. Puff. "What are you saying?" Franz spewed out his coffee in one gulp and hastily placed his coffee cup on a nearby table, looking at Hitler with an incredulous expression on his face. He even had coffee stains on the corners of his mouth. "Report, Officer Franz. I have been invited and successfully joined the Hans Cat Workers' Party. And they also said they are willing to elect me as the seventh member of their party. Ignoring Franz's shocked gaze, Hitler repeated what he had said before. This time, Franz finally heard clearly. It was precisely because of this that his gaze towards Hitler became increasingly incredulous. He even suspected that this kid might have been exposed. Otherwise, how can we explain how those people easily made him join the Hans Cat Workers' Party? That's understandable. But it would be a bit excessive to elect him as the seventh member of the party. Do you really consider him an idiot? What is the status of a committee member? Even if he doesn't understand the Hans Cat Workers' Party, there are nearly 50 political parties in the entire Mahay city, and as the Minister of Army Intelligence, he still doesn't know how these parties operate. The core of a political party is the Presidium. The composition of the Presidium is composed of members. Whenever a major event occurs within a party, these committee members need to vote for election or engage in public discussions. It can be said that everything in a political party cannot bypass the core member of the committee. Now just one night apart, his beloved subordinate actually told him that he was about to become a committee member of Hans Cat. This is simply for a moment, Franz couldn't even find a special adjective to describe his inner self. That feeling is even more outrageous than the pimp on the street giving him a free bill or Marilyn Monroe going to sea. Can you tell me how you did it? Franz's voice was slightly low. This time, he did not lose his composure like before, but instead pressed all his doubts to the bottom of his heart, waiting for Hitler to personally answer him. Hitler was not aware of Franz's inner thoughts. Upon hearing the officer's inquiry, he truthfully recounted all the events of last night. 1 minute later. What? Shit. Sergeant Hitler, please don't joke with me like this. Do you, who earns a few hundred marks a month, want to lead the Hans Cat Workers' Party to make money? Suddenly, Franz's angry roar echoed throughout the vast office. The sound was so intense that even the entire room was affected, and for a moment, the air became incredibly quiet. Everyone stared blankly at the leader and subordinate of Franz and Hitler, feeling somewhat puzzled. Countless people around him looked at him in surprise, and Franz's teeth chattered. Not long ago. Standing in front of him, this beloved soldier aspires to become a noble painter. The reason given by the other party is that they want to earn more money and become a respected noble artist in the future. The results have also been seen. Sergeant Hitler, who possesses a noble artistic soul, gave up his career as a painter and once again focused on his military career, becoming an inconspicuous screw and shining for the country. May I ask, what kind of thing do you have that you can't even understand? You've been on the street for 5 consecutive years, and you want to teach others how to make money. For a moment, Franz had countless grass mud horses running wildly on the vast grassland in his heart. He took a few deep breaths, tried to adjust his mindset, looked straight at Hitler, and said sternly, "Sergeant Hitler, I hope you can be more truthful and not conceal anything from me. You know, the consequences of falsely reporting intelligence are very serious, and there is a high possibility of going to military court." "Yes, I know, sir," Hitler shouted loudly. "Okay, please tell me the specific truth now, I won't blame you." Franz's face softened slightly. He picked up a pen casually, ready to record something. "Report, sir. The fact is, I have successfully infiltrated the internal team and requested the chief to give instructions on the next steps of the plan." Hitler's crisp and sharp voice echoed throughout the room. Almost as soon as he finished speaking. Click. Franz's pen in his hand broke. It's hard to imagine to what extent this officer was angry, even folding a pen in his hand. The pitch-black ink flowed and covered Franz's palm. He lifted his head with a smirk and said, "Sergeant Hitler, the meaning of your words seems to be telling me that those members of the Workers' Party are very stupid, very stupid." Surprisingly, it only took them a day, and they would believe such nonsense as a stranger taking them to make money. Hitler. He really wants to say, is there a possibility that his language is more infectious? But when he noticed Franz's ironclad expression, he thought for a moment and ultimately decided to let it go. If it angers the official, no one will sign when he receives his salary. P.S. Is there anyone else watching this theme? A batch of poor data. If someone is watching, I'll have more and more. Little brother kneels down to seek a wave of data. Seeking a fresh flower. A reward. A monthly pass. As long as someone reads and has data, I will immediately add more updates. Chapter 6. Having more money, less tasks, being near home, getting promoted and rich. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The atmosphere on site was once deadlocked. Franz was not aware that in the hearts of his subordinates in front of him, his value was only equivalent to a salary list. After adjusting his breathing again and forcibly calming his restless mood, the anger in his pupils dissipated once again. Franz looked at Hitler quietly and said, "Okay, as you said, next, I need you to determine the specific movements of the Hans Cat Workers' Party and identify the Radical Party among other parties. Once the news is confirmed, report it to me immediately, understand?" "Understood." Hitler instinctively straightened his waist and said, "Okay, very good, Corporal Hitler. I am very satisfied with your momentum and look forward to your performance. If you can complete the task on time, I assure you that if you get a promotion and a salary increase, it will definitely be the treatment you want. With less work and leisure time, you can leave now." Franz nodded seriously and said, "Yes, Officer Franz." After Hitler finished speaking, he turned around and left. Watching Hitler's departure, Franz shook his head and showed an indifferent smile. He has already figured it out clearly. Isn't this kid like to brag? He'll have to wait and see if this kid can really find out what he wants after giving him some time. Teach people how to make money. Funny. How can anyone believe this kind of thing? Even if he dies of poverty, starvation, and even has no money to hire prostitutes, he cannot believe that someone will teach him how to make money. The words are divided into two parts. On the other side, Hitler left Franz's office and turned around, humming a song and heading home. In his opinion, the task Franz had assigned him was already a matter of holding hands. Just wait for a moment, and the intelligence will be readily available. The overall operation of the Workers' Party requires command. The commander must only be the Presidium, right? And who is the Presidium? Of course it's these committee members. After thinking things through, Hitler's footsteps became much lighter. More money, less work, closer to home. Promotion and wealth are coming soon. There's nothing to do today, let's start our foreign activities. Half a month later. The back room of the brewery. In a single room. Hitler sat on the bed with a gloomy expression, facing a mirror, drinking a glass of oatmeal beer in his hands without any taste. "Mad, you're being careless." No matter how hard he thought, since he came, the Workers' Party has been neglecting their work all day long. I don't think about studying national affairs every day, but instead urge him to listen to his lectures and learn from him. Half a month. He's almost emptied out that little inventory in his stomach. Seeing the usually lifeless guys rekindle their enthusiasm and desire for life, Hitler's mentality exploded. This kind of change is good and positive. But the problem is, isn't his good days gone? You know, he's still waiting for Chief Franz to give him a promotion and salary increase. The most crucial thing is that Officer Franz has promised him that as long as he successfully completes this task, the other party will definitely arrange a job for him that is less idle and more leisurely. Although it may not be comparable to artists, in terms of freedom during working hours, it is still quite similar to some extent. What's going on? What should we do? Mr. Hitler, everyone has been waiting for you outside for a long time. It's your turn to give a lecture. At this moment, accompanied by a knock on the door, a chubby man with golden glasses hurriedly pushed the door in from outside. The other party's tone was filled with respect for Hitler, and it was Lucas who had resisted the most fiercely recently. After listening to several classes of Hitler one after another, Lucas gradually became brainwashed by Hitler. No, he was gradually infected by Hitler's rich knowledge. Eventually, he gradually became Hitler's most admired loyal fan. Okay, I got it, I'll be leaving soon. Upon hearing the sound, Hitler felt helpless and could only put down his glass and walk out of the room with his foot raised. Hitler! 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 On the scene, waves of neat shouts echoed throughout the entire brewery, deafening. Underneath the stage, everyone was blushing. I only saw the back room of the tavern, which was already filled with people at some point, and all the wooden tables that were used for drinking and laughing had been removed. The empty room now appears very crowded. After half a month of promotion, Hitler's reputation has spread to all nearby streets. Countless people came to admire the name, making the reputation of the Hans Cat Workers' Party unprecedentedly strong. At the entrance of the back room, Lucas had an excited expression, looking at the high spirits of everyone in the room, and his excitement was beyond measure. This feeling is something he has never experienced before. For half a month now, he has witnessed the party he created growing step by step, like a baby in swaddling clothes, under the care of Hitler, thriving. Mr. Hitler, it's your turn. He eagerly looked at Hitler beside him. However, Hitler remained indifferent and stood still, allowing everyone to shout loudly at the empty platform. Hitler! 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 Lucas is in a hurry. He quickly looked at Hitler again and couldn't help but urge him. Hitler remained calm, standing there quietly, as if ignoring everyone's cries for him, and as if playing with everyone's love for him recklessly. A full 3 minutes. Hitler stood for 3 minutes, and everyone waited for 3 minutes. Lucas was extremely anxious. And at this moment, Hitler finally moved. He began to move his first foot, then his second, step by step, slowly walking towards the stage. His appearance was finally noticed by some people. In an instant, the atmosphere on site instantly exploded to its peak. Countless people showed extreme fanaticism and screamed desperately, with visible veins around their necks. They blushed and their ears turned red. Their palms are hurting. In such an atmosphere, Hitler finally stepped onto the podium. From this moment on, the atmosphere on site has reached its peak. Bomb! The entire scene exploded. The sound resounds throughout the world, and even across several streets, people can feel the warm atmosphere contained within it. For such a scene, Hitler remained extremely calm, slowly extending his hand as if facing the same scene countless times. Next second. Suddenly, the whole room fell silent and silent. Everyone seems to have been trained in advance, with orders and prohibitions, and even a needle landing on the ground can be clearly heard. Feeling the fervor in the eyes of the audience below, Hitler raised his lips and smiled slightly before saying, "What is the most important thing to make money in this world? Networking. There's a saying that goes, a network is gold. Today, I won't talk about how to make money for you, I will only teach you how to earn people. Because earning people is earning money. Do you understand? Understand the applause." Chapter 7. 7 Character True Words. Worth 7 billion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. 7 Character True Words. Worth 7 billion. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward. Wow. In an instant, accompanied by Hitler's words, thunderous applause erupted from the scene. In the eyes of countless people below, there was a thirst for knowledge, and they listened attentively, with a seriousness they had never possessed before. Okay. I feel sincerity from everyone's eyes. So next, I will send you 7 words. These 7 words, each worth 1 billion. If you learn these 7 words, you are a man and can make a deal with any woman you want. If you are a woman, you can make a deal with any man you want. If you are the boss, you can trade with anyone you want. Absolutely. These 7 words are too important, do you want to hear them? Hitler asked tentatively. Yes. No surprise. The scene once again resounded with deafening shouts, with an imposing and moving aura. Do you want it? Yes. These 7 words are too powerful, I only remember one. I'll ask you if you want it on your side. Yes. Louder, I remember 2, should I? Yes. Heart-wrenching and lung-wrenching, 3. Yes. Hysterical, ... Okay, I have already remembered all 7 words. These 7 words are called, I love you, and have nothing to do with you. I love you for nothing, everyone, understand the applause. At the moment when Hitler's words fell, there was once again fierce applause from the audience. Everyone was excited and crazy, constantly dancing and desperately waving their palms. I don't know what's going on, every time they listen to Hitler's lectures, their brains seem to be infused with knowledge, and that kind of enlightening feeling is something they can't enjoy from anywhere else in their lifetime. I love you, it has nothing to do with you. These 7 words sound simple and seem to be nothing special. But if you think deeply, you will discover infinite mysteries within it. Love is selfless. It knows no borders, even gender relations. Love is dedication, it is wishful thinking. But I love you is a very heavy word, which can cause trouble for others. It will make the person you love farther away from you. But in such a situation, with the addition of something unrelated to you, the meaning instantly becomes different. I love you. But please don't mind, and I don't want to cause you any trouble. It can be said that in this way, not only will people not dislike you, but they may even have a different feeling towards you. In this way, no matter who you are or what role you play, as long as you say this sentence, you will inevitably have an emotional connection with the other person. And this will be the beginning of everything on stage. Hitler's speech continued, and the people below listened in ecstasy. Although they have long been accustomed to it, every time Mr. Hitler appears on stage, they all involuntarily immerse themselves in it and cannot extricate themselves. Time passes by minute by second. Among these people, there is a man in his 30s who is well dressed and his hair is neatly waxed, which is out of place with these people. Every piece of clothing on his body is meticulously customized and of great value. Despite this, he was still immersed in Hitler's speech and couldn't stop. His name is Hanfu. He is a businessman who has just returned to China. At this moment, Hanfu suddenly heard news that made him feel extremely disappointed. All right, everyone. Today's speech has come to an end, everyone can come back now. Hitler smiled and bowed on stage, then turned around and left. This behavior certainly caused countless people to feel reluctant, and they begged Hitler to speak for a while longer. However, Hitler remained indifferent and even accelerated his pace of departure. TNND. Speaking of which, I have emptied all of my inventory. Do you want to listen to the story of the little tadpole looking for its mother? What he didn't notice was that at the moment he left, a well-dressed gentleman downstairs kept his gaze fixed on his back until he left. After leaving the back room of the brewery, Hitler sat in his own cabin for a while. When the audience waiting for the speech was about to leave, he finally packed his things and prepared to get up. Just as he walked out the door and waited for the carriage, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Mr. Hitler, may I take up some of your time? I want to talk to you about something. Hanfu nodded in greeting and said politely. Hitler had the intention to refuse, but hesitated for a moment before deciding to hear what the other party was asking him for. He took the initiative to ask this question. But the answer he received left him completely bewildered. Are you saying you want to invest in me? That's right, it's not just me. Your speech was wonderful and extremely charming, including some wealthy people, but you know, beer houses are not suitable for them. Hanfu smiled and said. The two of them walked on the roadside while chatting. On the street, someone is posting bright red posters on the wall, with an old man's surrender on top and slogans below, fighting for tomorrow's bread and peace. And this scene happened to be caught in the eyes of Hitler and his companions. Hanfu casually pointed to the slogan on the wall and said, "We can help you make you very popular, even more famous than him. Do you think so? In addition, we can also thoroughly package it for you, just like great figures in history, shaving your head or growing a big beard." The more Hanfu spoke, the more excited he became. Hitler became increasingly confused and even a little scared as he listened. If he remembers correctly, the poster on the wall should be the presidential candidate who will soon run for the next Hans Cat. Did the other party attempt to elevate themselves to the public throne, with an influence even comparable to that of a presidential candidate? If the other party agreed to praise him as a top artist, Hitler didn't hesitate and nodded in agreement. After all, who wouldn't want to be famous? And it's also a job as an artist with free time and little human exploitation. But if it was a speech, it would be the same. You should know that he is now a member of the Hans Cat Workers' Party. Every word and action represents a political party. To put it bluntly, what is the difference between this and rebellion? Maybe one day someone will point a gun at the forehead and smash him. Moreover, he is an undercover agent, an undercover agent. He came to report an affair, not to take the lead in causing trouble. "Sorry, Mr. Hanfu, I'm afraid I can't agree to your invitation." Hanfu still had to speak, but Hitler interrupted the other person first and expressed his intention. This behavior immediately made Hanfu very puzzled. He didn't understand. Isn't this kind of treatment exactly what everyone dreams of? Begging for flowers. Please give me a reward. Looking for a monthly pass. Chapter 8. Becoming the most famous speaker. Kneel down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Becoming the most famous speaker. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward. Hanfu also attempted to persuade Hitler, but Hitler appeared determined and had to give up on this. And he stated that he would come again in the next few days until Hitler agreed. Upon hearing these words, Hitler felt a burst of laughter in his heart. It was impossible, absolutely impossible, even if he jumped off the roof of the Church of Our Lady in Muhay today, he could not agree. After bidding farewell to Hanfu, the carriage that Hitler was waiting for arrived. He rode in a carriage, twists and turns, and finally arrived outside the Muhay army camp again. It has been over half a month since the last time, and he needs to report his task progress to Franz. "Report to Officer Franz, Hitler is reporting to you." Hitler's clear voice echoed in the room. Franz nodded in greeting. Looking at the familiar face in front of him, he seemed to joke and said, "Sergeant Hitler, I remember you said last time that you had infiltrated the enemy's interior and become the 7th member of their committee. Are you here today to report intelligence to me?" Hitler. A hint of embarrassment appeared on his face. "I was careless. How should he report this? He can't say that those people, under his own deception, have started to neglect their work, no longer want to rebel and become independent, and only want to attend classes and listen to success stories every day. Being very self-disciplined. Cannot say, absolutely cannot say." He suspected that if he had told the truth, Franz would have easily suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and passed out on the spot. "Cough, no, sir," he said bluntly. Upon hearing this, Franz's smile deepened as he knew this kid was unreliable. Can it be so easy to infiltrate the party's internal structure by just boasting around him in one day? If that's the case, he could just send his 7-year-old son directly, and it would just give the family an extra income guarantee. How good is that? Of course, as a high-ranking official, he cannot blindly undermine his subordinates. He should provide them with appropriate care and spiritual encouragement, which is still necessary. Alright, it's okay. Isn't it just that the task didn't go smoothly? It's still early, take your time. If you need any help, just report it to me. Franz stood up and patted Hitler's shoulder, comforting him. Subsequently, he stated that if Hitler had nothing to do, he could leave. And he looked at the sky and realized it was already late, ready to go home and hug his wife and children for dinner. He stood up, tidied up his clothes, picked up his hat from the side, and prepared to leave. What surprised him was that Hitler was still standing in place. "Sergeant Hitler, do you have anything else to do?" he frowned and said unexpectedly. "Report to Officer Franz, there's something I don't know if I should report to you." Hitler exclaimed loudly. "Do you really have it?" Franz pondered for a moment, then leaned back against his desk and gestured for Hitler to tell him about the matter. So, Hitler informed Franz of Hamp's previous attempts to recruit and invest in him, emphasizing the other party's investment intention and the entire packaging idea for his future. And he also stated that the other party will invite him in the next few days and would like to ask Franz if he has any better suggestions. After Hitler finished speaking, he saw Franz across from him silent, as if he had something on his mind. The whole room was incredibly quiet for an instant. After a while, Franz finally regained his senses and asked Hitler in an uncertain tone, "Are you saying that someone said you're doing a great job and they want to invest in you?" "Yes. And this person is very wealthy, and he also knows a lot of wealthy people." "That's right. He also said he wants to package you, design your appearance specifically for you, like those great figures in history, and push you to the throne of public opinion, so that you have the popularity of no less than a presidential candidate." "Sir Franz, your memory is so good," Hitler timely flattered. He didn't notice that the smile on Franz's face had disappeared again, replaced by a blazing anger that was about to burst out of his eyes. It was precisely his flattery, like igniting a fuse, that Franz exploded instantly. "Shit!" In an instant, Franz's deafening roar echoed in the room. Fortunately, it's not early at this moment, and everyone has finished work. In the vast office, only Hitler and Franz are left. Hitlerman is gone. Then he looked unwilling. "Even though you were a commander, you couldn't curse people recklessly. I only reported a piece of intelligence based on facts, and even if there was no reward, I was scolded for no reason. Who can bear this?" Looking at Hitler's displeased expression, Franz across from him seemed to see what the other person was thinking. He laughed angrily in an instant. "Good guy, are you still justified in deceiving others? I'll let you go 1 or 2 horses, but I can still keep letting you go. Do you really treat this place like a horse ranch? Last time, he said he infiltrated the enemy's interior overnight. This time, it's even more outrageous to say that my speech about leading people to make money has gained the attention of wealthy people, who still want to invest in him. Damn it, you bastard. You might as well say that if you hire prostitutes on the street, they will see that you look handsome and decide not to charge you. It's reliable to hire you for free. The matter has come to an end. Franz can also see it. Hitler, this bastard, has no intention of repentance at all. He really thought that as the intelligence minister, he didn't have time to investigate and could do whatever he wanted. He has decided. Since Hitler, a lying bastard, is stubborn, he won't give the other person a good face. Dog raised mounting paper. Did learning art ruin the brain? Franz began to give the next order to Hitler while roast in his heart. "Sergeant Hitler. Now I command. Considering the information you provided, I allow you to accept the other party's invitation and packaging, and be sure to become a prominent speaker in Han's cat country. Make sure to thoroughly investigate all the malicious individuals in the Muhay market, report them, and then catch them all in one go. Do you understand?" The words fell. He clearly noticed a hint of embarrassment in Hitler's eyes. "Sir Franz. Sergeant Hitler, are you in any trouble?" Franz said deliberately with a smile in his eyes. He certainly understands why the other party is in a difficult situation. It's easy to talk big, but it's difficult to implement. Franz waited for the other party to admit his mistake. At that time, as a superior, he will not be unforgivable for the occasional small mistakes made by his subordinates. Just as Franz was fantasizing about how to whip the subordinate in front of him later. Next, Sir Franz, I don't really like dealing with wealthy people. You know, I don't want to become a public figure, said Hitler with a troubled expression. And when these words fell into Franz's ear, his whole body trembled with anger. At this time of Dut Nyang's life, are you still pretending? Go, you must go, Franz's hysterical roar rang out in the room, so loud that the entire roof was about to overturn, the beams shook, and dust rustled down. Chapter 9. The Last Stubbornness of Art Students. Kneeling Down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Last Stubbornness of Art Students. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward the sudden roar almost startled Hitler. He was first stunned for a moment, then showed a look of embarrassment on his face, as this job was quite dangerous and could easily become a target. He told Franz about the idea of shooting the bird in the head with a gun. Upon hearing this, Franz didn't think about it and decided to take it on his own. And in addition, he also promised Hitler that as long as this matter succeeded and he was promoted 3 levels, he would still be in a position where he only received wages and did not work. So good. Hitler's eyes lit up immediately. Seeing Hitler's performance, Franz couldn't help but sneer in his heart. He wants to see how this subordinate should pay a heavy price for his lies this time. This time, he went all out. If Hitler really succeeds, even if he puts on such an old face, he will not hesitate to elevate Hitler's official rank by 3 levels, even to become his deputy minister of intelligence. Of course, the premise for all of this is that everything Hitler said before was true, and in the end, things were really made possible by Hitler. Just. Is this possible? Franz expressed deep doubts about this. He said disdainfully, of course. With the endorsement of his superior Franz, the last bit of concern in Hitler's heart completely disappeared. Not to mention anything else, but just one thing, his superior is a perfect gentleman in keeping his promises. He was able to spend 5 years away from the military to attend an art college and receive military allowances, depending entirely on the promises made by Chief Franz before. As long as he can dress up as something, the other party agrees to support his artistic dream. Now that his dream has shattered, he has returned to the army once again. Ensure completion of the task. With a loud click, Hitler's feet were clasped together, and his heels slammed against his leather shoes. His tone was crisp and loud, and his morale was high. Lying down to earn money and earning an extra monthly salary. Compared to the level of risk associated with the task, such treatment is simply not worth mentioning. It's better to wait until the critical moment, and then he can bravely retreat from the current. With such thoughts in mind, Hitler bid farewell to Franz and left the Müller army camp. The next night. The back room of the tavern. Accompanied by intense cheers from everyone, Hitler slowly left the scene and disappeared from everyone's sight. After he left, he immediately returned to his own room, where someone had been waiting for a long time. It was Mr. Hanf who had previously discussed with Hitler. Since confirming the orders given to him by his superior Franz, Hitler no longer hesitated and immediately found his #1 fan, Lucas, the next day. Command him to stay at the door, and as soon as Hanfu is confirmed to appear, schedule him to his own room as soon as possible. As expected. Hanfu actually kept the agreement and reappeared. Mr. Hanfu. Mr. Hitler. The two of them exchanged pleasantries when they met. Immediately afterwards, Hanfu took the initiative to get to the point, feeling a bit impatient and curious to ask Hitler why he suddenly changed his mind. After all, based on the attitude shown by Hitler last night, it is absolutely impossible for him to agree. He believes in the sharp eyes of his businessmen. Of course, Hitler cannot be truthful about this. Is it difficult for me to say that I can still join you, infiltrate your internal team, and better report you? Hitler secretly harbored resentment in his heart. He suspected that he dared to say so, he would definitely not survive tonight, and he wouldn't even be able to leave. He pretended to be mysterious and asked, is this question important? As soon as he said this, Hanfu immediately understood and smiled, saying that of course it was not important, not at all. Hitler also smiled. He said, "Is that right? For wealthy people, isn't earning money the most important thing?" In one sentence, Hanften was instantly amazed. He pointed to Hitler with one finger and exclaimed in shock, "Mr. Hitler, you are truly the most outstanding speaker I have ever seen. Even a businessman like me feels inferior to your words." After mutual praise, we immediately got to the main topic. I saw Hanfu with a very serious expression and said, "Mr. Hitler, I highly recognize your talent, and I can even say that I can invest in you now. However, in my opinion, your talent should never be limited to just one city. Your future should be vast. So, I hope to take you into the circle of wealthy people, let more people be moved by your personality charm, and let more people invest in you. So, Mr. Hitler, I have an awkward suggestion here, which is whether you can give a superb speech for everyone in a specific occasion." After these words, it can be said that the rainbow farts kept coming one after another. Even though Hitler thought he had read countless short video platforms, he had already gained a lot of knowledge, and still had some emotions that he couldn't help but feel. Looking at Hanfu's apologetic expression, the muscles on Hitler's face couldn't help but twitch a few times. Why didn't I realize before that this thing was so powerful that even wealthy people were fooled for a moment? When? Of course, no problem. Isn't this my area of expertise? Hitler smiled confidently. To be honest, the appearance that Hanfu just showed made Hitler nervous. He thought he needed some serious conditions to get the other party to invest or join this circle. Emotion is just a deception, No, it's just a speech, to guide everyone in their direction. Does this require hesitation? Of course not. Do we still need to consider this? This Nima is someone's strength, what should he consider? Just do it. Mr. Hitler, did you agree? Hanfu also showed a surprised expression. He truly did not expect that the progress of the matter would be so smooth, and Mr. Hitler agreed so decisively. Although he doesn't know which noble person is helping him, no matter who, as long as the other party is in trouble, he will definitely mention them in front of the Virgin Mary and pray more times in the future. Of course. Hitler nodded. Upon hearing this, Hanfu's eyes became even more excited. Even after receiving Hitler's accurate response, he immediately stated that he would send invitations to celebrities from all walks of life in the Muhe market tomorrow. Be sure to give Hitler the greatest support. Upon hearing these words, Hitler also relaxed in his heart. If it were true as Hanf said, he believed that no matter what, he should have initially met the requirements of Officer Franz. This also means that in the future, I will be promoted to a third level and my days of lying flat will be stable. The 9th update. Is there anyone else watching? Little brother kneels down and asks for all the data. Just one flower, one reward, one monthly pass. If there are any updates, little brother, continue to explode. Kneel down and thank you. Chapter 10. Art students entering the upper class society. Kneel down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Art students entering the upper class society. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward in the blink of an eye. 3 days have passed. During these 3 days, at Hanfu's reminder, Hitler specially designed a flag for himself. In Hanfu's words, this future will become his symbol and even be promoted nationwide, posted on the walls of every city. Hitler thought and overthrew one idea after another, ultimately leading him to come up with the most perfect solution. At noon this day, the sky was drizzling with light drizzle. Hitler rode in a carriage and arrived at a villa area in the center of Muhe city. Dong dong dong. He politely knocked on the door and was greeted by a sexy beauty wearing a shiny crown of hair, like a princess from the Western world, full of luxury all over her body. Are you Mr. Hitler? I am Helena, Hanfu's wife. Thank you for coming. Helena was flattered and quickly welcomed the esteemed guest in front of her into the room. According to her husband's description, the gentleman in front of her is exceptionally talented and may be the biggest future partner for their family, which must be welcomed with the highest sincerity. Following that, under the guidance of Helena, Hitler entered the most luxurious villa in the upper-class society of this otherworldly world. Summarize in one word. Expensive. Two-word summary. Really rich. After browsing for a while, Hitler quickly restrained his gaze and forced himself not to look around. He is now a master of success studies, and the people he has led are all over 100 million. How could he be moved by the small scene in front of him? Impossible. It's simply impossible. Following Helena's footsteps, Hitler arrived at the restaurant on the first floor of the villa. You can see 20 wealthy businessmen from various industries sitting in front of the huge long dining table. These people are either elderly or young, with white hair all over their heads, or they also have mature faces. With just one glance, Hitler captured all the information on the scene. At the same time, as he watched the crowd, the wealthy people on site were also observing Hitler. When they saw Hitler appear, there was no trace of restraint, but rather a calm demeanor. Everyone couldn't help but nod. But from this point of view, they began to believe that the other party was a speaker who had experience in public speaking facing countless people. As for whether the other party can bring them wealth, as Hanfu said, or it could be some of the experiences they have learned about each other's oral statements, where they have led countless people to earn money. All of this is not worth believing. As a businessman, it's not just about demanding that what you see is true, but that even if you see, it may not necessarily be true. Only by verifying from multiple perspectives and aspects can risks be minimized and benefits maximized. Except for this method, no one can think of taking a penny out of their pockets. Perhaps sensing a slight decrease in the atmosphere at the scene, Hanfu stood up immediately and warmly introduced Hitler to everyone. However, everyone seemed to lose interest suddenly, and the response was mediocre. It's obvious. If Hitler continues to maintain this situation today, the investment gathering hosted by Hanfu for him will end in failure. And Hanfu, who realized this problem, although he had a smile on his face, his heart was filled with anxiety like fire. At this moment, at the dining table, a middle-aged gentleman with a pure white bow tie on his chest suddenly joked, "Since the gentleman is so good at giving speeches, why not give us all a lesson now? As long as you can persuade us, for some small investments, I believe that the gentlemen and beautiful ladies present here will not be stingy." This statement was no less than a provocation, almost reminding Hitler to shout to them quickly. It is uncertain that they will reward Hitler with a few bones if they are happy. Baron. Teng. For a moment, Hanfu slammed the table in anger. He was about to erupt, but he didn't realize that his arm had been grabbed by Hitler next to him. "Mr. Hitler, he said in confusion. However, Hitler remained indifferent and said with a smile, "Mr. Baron is right. I once made a fortune by leading people. If you want to take the money out of the gentleman's pockets now, of course you should pay some price. Baron gentleman wants to hear, so let me briefly say it. Okay, with backbone, Mr. Hitler, I'm starting to appreciate you gradually." Baron raised his glass in front of him and gestured in the distance. Hitler also nodded, giving a slight greeting. Immediately after, he faced everyone and glanced around before saying, "Today we won't talk about anything else, just a little bit about how to make everyone rich. A word stirs up 1,000 waves." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was momentarily stunned. Even as a provocateur, Baron didn't react for a while. He said in a daze, "Mr. Hitler, do you know what you're talking about? Teach them how to make money. What kind of fantasy idea is this? It's even more bizarre than Alibaba robbing 40 thieves, Little Red Riding Hood being tough and a big bad wolf." Regarding the reactions of the crowd present, Hitler had already anticipated all of them. He smiled and said, "Of course, in my opinion, wealth cannot be preserved without certain methods. And all of you here are just temporary owners. The words fell. The scene suddenly became boiling again. One by one, they looked at Hitler as if they were looking at a clown, and now they have recognized each other clearly. The speaker invited by Hanfu was clearly a clown who kept making jokes and saying some crazy things for the sake of money. Mr. Hitler. At this moment, sitting at the top on the right, an old gentleman with silver hair suddenly took the initiative to speak. Baron, please speak. Hitler looked up, indicating that he had heard. Can I think so? Do you mean that we will eventually lose the wealth and even status we have? The old gentleman, who was called the Baron, said inexplicably. Of course. Hitler said without any hesitation. This statement also amused the elderly gentleman who was over 70 years old and possessed a noble title. Other people on site also laughed together. Suddenly, the entire restaurant seemed to be immersed in a world of laughter, and everyone laughed uncontrollably. Even some beautiful women who accompanied their husbands were trembling with laughter. Puhaha. Mr. Hitler, you're really too humorous. I really don't understand. Can you tell me how we will lose our wealth in the future, and when? Baron covered his stomach, his whole body trembling slightly. 10th update. Kneeling for data. Kneeling for a fresh flower. As long as there are flowers, I will add more immediately. Monthly ticket rewards double updated.